Hello, welcome to the Reportage Club here at Documentary Media Centre, and tonight I'm joined by our youngest guest ever and someone that I've worked with for at least like the last 11 or 12 years now, Cameron Savage. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Good. Well, thank you for taking the time to come and speak to us. Are you nervous?
No.
Not as nervous. I'm actually quite nervous about this actually because I've known you a long time, but that doesn't actually mean I'm any less nervous than I normally am in the preparation, because I think this is a really important one for me because I've known you such a long time. This is the first time I've actually had a conversation with you about maybe what some of your motivations are and why you do what you do, because you've got such an eclectic mix of stuff. Obviously I'm talking to you tonight mainly about your documentary photography and documentary filmmaking, but you do make other types of films, you take other types of photography. What's your earliest memory you have of thinking, actually I like using cameras and stuff like that? Your iPod being the most famous thing that I can think of.
Yeah. It was there was a time when I got a camera at Christmas, just a small digital camera, and then I thought I'll start taking some pictures, obviously with this camera that I got. And
how old were you then?
I'm not so sure, perhaps about 8 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I might have been older, I'm not exactly sure, but then we went to a family wedding and then started taking pictures of the wedding.
Taking over?
Yeah. That was, definitely with some of the wedding photography that I've done, where I've actually stood in front of the wedding photographer, I suppose. So I took over doing their photography.
Yeah, okay. So that's one of your first earliest memories that you have. And what was it about that? Is it the fact that you were there but not there because you're looking through your camera, or you're capturing it, preserving something that you're thinking of?
Yeah, I think because weddings are quite a boring event, especially for me. I mean, sitting around and watching quite a lot of boring things, especially when I was younger, then that took me out of that and gave me something practical to do. So, I mean, looking at it through a lot of my photography has always been looking at things that other people may not have seen or may not usually see every day. Or mainly everyday objects or everyday things that people just walk past and trying to create art out of those things.
So it's seeing things like the everyday, the mundane.
Yeah, the everyday,
almost, but in a different way, or
hopefully capturing it in a way that people might look at it and think, well, that's quite interesting, and maybe that loads and loads of people would walk past that in every day and not really take much notice.
Yeah. Okay, well, obviously you've given me 9 photographs, which is the standard format now that we have for our Reportage Club, and I want to start with this one first of all. An interesting character. It makes me think about who he is and what he's done in the past, because I think we've snapshotted him, and then we're going to pass it around everybody so everybody can see. But describe to me, where were you?
Yeah, this is in Stratford. Okay. So Stratford-upon-Avon, yeah.
And what was it? Sort of a weekend, Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's a Sunday.
Yeah. Whiz it round so everyone can see. Were you in sort of street photography mode when you were taking that? Were you taking lots of pictures and you stumbled across him? Was he the first photograph that you took that day?
No, he wasn't the first photograph, but quite a lot of different people before, and I was going through a stage of trying to get more close-up shots of telling stories through showing people that have had a life and someone that is what maybe other people might disregard or think, well, they don't look approachable or that type of thing, and then trying to capture that in photography.
Because a lot of people will go for sort of beautiful people, or pleasant to the eye, or what someone's wearing and stuff. And for me, that's the ultimate sort of jeans, leather jacket, Saturday afternoon, without stereotyping. He looks like he might have just come out of a bookmaker's, which we'll come on to in a minute. One of my favourite photographs that you've taken in the 9 here. That kind of, he's lived a life. He's kind of face.
And that's a lot of the theme of these 9 images is all different people that have a story to tell. And what I like about the street photography is that every street photography is different, but a lot of the work that I work on is all about, I like the idea that they're telling their own story. So when you've captured them in a moment, like there was a Rossellini film, The Machine for Killing Bad People, and then there was I can't remember what video I was watching, but there was a professor talking about it, and it's this idea of having a photograph and that person is frozen in time forever, that they're in that position, and that type of idea made me want to look at different types of ways of capturing things in street photography, so they're actually telling their own story in the image.
Would that stop you from captioning your photographs if you were to print them out and put them on the wall? Would you leave them all uncaptioned?
Some of the photos that I've got names, like this one's called Listening Ear,
Okay.
but a lot of the ones I've got are just untitled. So on ones that I've put on 500 pixels, some of them might be Street Passer, and it might be Street Passer number 1, or so it's left that they're kept anonymous in a way, and even though that you can see them playing in the image, it's that it could be anyone, it could be anyone's story, and it's more about them as opposed to what the image or about me in that at all. It's more about the subject in the piece.
When you're walking down the road, is that what you're looking for all the time? Even when you haven't got a camera in your hand, is that how you're seeing the world? Is that how you're kind of processing the world in front of you? You're constantly thinking about, this, angles, shadows, people, stories, wonder what they did,
I think
wonder where they're going, that kind of stuff.
I think there's art in everything that you can see, and I think obviously everyone's got their own interpretation of what art is, and that's the beauty of different photography or visual art mediums, is that you can interpret anything that you want it to be. So that's kind of a way that I've always sort of seen things. Or I'm always with the other things that I do, with the filmmaking outside of documentary, I'm always sort of observing, and I've always seen myself as more of an observer, as actually being part of something. So this is just another arm to that, and showing that observation through another art medium.
What's really interesting for me as someone who works with students, whether that's primary school through to university students, because I've known you since you were like sort of 10 or 11 on the 2012 Olympics project that we did. You already have, and you have always demonstrated an ability like way beyond your maturity when it comes to be able to kind of see that kind of stuff. How do you handle the structure of being in a lesson where someone's maybe talking about something that you innately feel already, or that you already know? You might not know what it's called, but you know how to do it. Do you struggle with that, or do you use it as a way of backfilling? Oh, now I know what that's called.
So you mean in terms of, in maybe a lecture or something like that? Yeah, I think I've always found it quite challenging. It's quite difficult to, if you've already done something, or you're already working on something, or you feel that you've already at that level. That's something that I've always felt as a main struggle with motivation, is like I can get, as opposed to seeing it as, I know how to do this already, so I can just focus on doing that piece, as opposed to I won't be motivated and I won't be able to achieve it. So yeah, because
I look at your body of work that you've been producing for many years, which some people will never see, but obviously because you won't want to use it now, because from your point of view it's more about some of this stuff and what you're working on there.
Yes,
you've always had the ability to be able to put yourself in a situation where you kind of just get on with it, so whether you're filming on your iPod, editing it and sending it to me of Bradley Wiggins winning his gold medal at London 2012, right through to some of the other stuff, I've got third year students that are still not at that level, but you've been doing that as part of what you've done all the time. Do you even realise that?
It's not really something that I really think about.
Which is why I love talking to you, because I've got to kind of have a good old dig around in your brain. I've got to lift your head and have a good old dig around. Now we're going to move on to our second photograph. And the thing that makes me laugh the most about this, obviously, is these two guys sitting there. I want to know what the guy's looking at who's standing in the shop window, the shop front. But it's called Breakfast at Tiffany's as well. And it reminds me of a photo that Tina showed me where it was like all these old white fridges piled up, and it said Selfridges, not Selfridges. I don't know whether they got a cease and desist for it. It was like Selfridges. I thought that was quite funny. So Breakfast at Tiffany's, and it just looks the furthest away that you could from what you would imagine Breakfast at Tiffany's being like. So, but where is that?
This is in Brighton a few years ago, and it's just the thing is, it's shot through a car window, so you can see some of the rain on the glass. So
that was one of my questions. Where did you get that effect from? So your mum and dad not cleaning the car? That's cool. That's fine. Yeah. Now I know that. That's good. What was it about it? Was it what the shot was called, or was it the images? Pass it on, and then it's have a good look.
For me, it's that juxtaposition between, obviously in the film Breakfast at Tiffany's, how that, and it's also how you'd expect it to be, but then you see that and it's instantly shocking, so you think, well, that's, and it draws you in, and that's something that, it was the juxtaposition between their stories and what had brought them to be there, as opposed to, that's what it mainly is, and it's called, the photo is called Not Like in the Brochure, so it's, it was kind of like a...
It's not really a tourist shot for Brighton, is it?
Yeah. It's what the tourist board decided not to show you. But that's a lot of my work is about what is behind the facade and what do people choose not to see. And actually a lot of the time these people are actually quite important. What has led them to be into this place.
Because again, we don't really know about anybody's journey up until that point when we intersect with them, and then what happens after that, we have no idea what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and that's something I've always found fascinating with it. Like I've spoken about it a minute ago, being that they are always frozen in time. That is a snapshot of their existence captured in that photography, and what has brought them to that story and what would happen afterwards is quite a fascinating part of street photography.
And I think also you mentioned sort of the tourist board. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because you could come to Brighton for everything that the tourist board says that you should come and see, and of course when you're then hungry, the chances are you'd end up having a decent meal at breakfast at Tiffany's as opposed to anywhere else, because it'll be just like everywhere else where you live, you know what I mean? That's what I quite like. Are you observing all the time? So whether you're on a bus or whether you're in the car, you don't sort of step into camera and doing photography when you've got a camera in your hand. Is it something that you're always thinking about? Because you mentioned just before we started to record this, that now you've started to use the iPhone more than the camera. So explain to me a little bit about why you've decided to do that.
Yeah, I think it's not intrusive, and I think that if you can take it in smaller spaces, or if you're on public transport or any place that you might be, you always got your phone on you and you can take images, and because it's not intrusive, then one, people don't react to it and you can take images that you want to, but it's also got that, with a smartphone, it has that wider focal length, so it allows you to capture more, and sometimes I have to crop it in and to actually decide that's not the composition that I would like to show, and that's why some of the quality is not great, but sometimes that you can capture a wider frame and see more of a story with that.
And I suppose we're so used to people taking selfies now and stuff that we're not even sure whether they're photographing what it appears to be they're looking at. They might be taking a photograph of themselves or just checking their eyebrows or whatever. And I remember reading an interesting article about conflict reportage, and it was saying that the most effective phone or the most effective camera that was used during the Afghan war was in fact an iPhone, because particularly in the shuras with like the local villages and stuff like that, as soon as they stopped using cameras, the combat sort of teams and stuff, photographers, and started using iPhones, they actually got much better shots because people were almost like unaware that they were being photographed rather than someone putting a big camera up. It was actually, they were quite rugged as well. You didn't have to worry about them breaking as much as phones, and so that's quite interesting.
And the volume buttons that you can use to take the photo is actually a really important thing about some of the shots, some of the recent shots that I've taken, that you can easily snap away with just using the volume buttons or not even looking, so you can get, people aren't aware that they're being photographed, and I think that's the important thing. There's a big difference between, there's a lot of people who say they do street photography, but really they do street portraiture, where they go and ask permission for people to take their photograph, and that's a completely different form in itself. But I'm all about not knowing that you've been photographed and that and presenting them as that section of their story.
Okay, well, we're going to move on to number 3 now. And I like this one. I'm still not quite sure whether this is a a photo shoot for the reforming of a boy band from the 80s. And when I pass this round, everyone will know what I'm saying. It's quite interesting. Tell us where it was. And
this is in Foy in Cornwall, and it's just outside a pub. So it's two very different characters that you wouldn't expect, and they've just come together for. They obviously don't even know. I don't think they. Do
you think they know each other? That was my first question.
I don't think they do, and I think, but then again, they are quite close. So it's difficult to know. But
I was also trying to work out, if you pass it on, the guy on the left is smoking, whether the guy on the right was smoking as well, and actually they were it was like smokers' corner.
Yeah.
And one was standing and one was sitting down.
Yeah.
And hopefully everyone agrees with me. It looks like some sort of boy band that's reformed for their photo shoot of their sort of 937th gig, and it's like, are we still doing this? Is it on? Is it on or is it off? Why did you take that photograph? What was it about it that made it stand out with you?
I think mainly it's the contrast in the heights. So you've got someone who's standing and someone who's sitting, and to me that's it's not the same sort of shot composition that you'd expect to see. So instantly you're looking and you're looking down, so you can see more of that space.
Do you look at that and see the shot, or do you feel it before you take it?
A lot of the time with some of these shots I would have observed the people for a while before I actually take the image, and then think, because I don't always just take pictures of people just snapping away, but it's the story that I want to connect to. So
you're prepared to watch.
I'm prepared to watch
and wait and sort of.
Yes, and if there's something, like I can see a story or I can see something about them that. Sometimes I don't exactly know why I want to take the picture or took the picture at all, but it's something that connects you to them as people.
I've spoken to a photographer once about the way that you operate, and he said some days you can go out and take no photographs at all.
Yeah.
And I find that really interesting that, as someone who, I've got this challenge at the minute where I have to take 3 photographs every day, people, places and events. And it really makes you think about what you are looking at. And in fact, I would almost say, I think this is the 8th week of doing it, my observation skills, which I always thought were pretty good, having been in the army, are actually much better now, because I'm starting to notice things, because I'm looking at things through those three reasons, I suppose, people, places and events, and how does that think. And if I take that photograph, actually that represents all 3, and you suddenly realise that one photograph can represent many things to different people. And I suppose this comes back to what you were saying, really. Art is what anyone decides to make it.
Art is subjective, and you can really take from it what you want. You might love someone's artwork or hate someone's artwork. It's completely up to you. And I think that's what's great, and also about it.
Do you like crowds? Do you like crowds of people? Do you like a few people around? Do you like stumbling across groups of people? If you were to go out and do a photography walk next weekend and you're driven somewhere, do you deliberately hunt down groups of people, or do you wait until you stumble across them?
A lot of the images that I take are, I guess it's stumbled across it. Like, I wouldn't go out and hunt for a particular image. It's just if I'm out or I see something that attracts me to that shot, that I take it.
And do you have series in your head that you're trying to fit into? So, you might have that sort of guys in a pub, we've got breakfast at Tiffany's. Does that then make you think about, well, I'm going to take pictures of people sitting outside cafes, and maybe is that a photo series, or do you not think like that?
No, there's never really been a time where I've tried to approach a topic or a theme in any way. It's just over the years, it's just collections of photographs that I've taken. That a lot of the time now it's a commentary, a social commentary on life, and that's I've got a thing, Dr. Negative, which is the title that I use for uploading a lot of these images, and Dr. Negative is this PhD in negativity, completely fictional character that
sounds like a cartoon.
Yeah,
a cartoon character.
And Dr. Negative is he's an observer, and he watches, and these are his documents that he presents.
And how close is Dr. Negative to you as an alter ego?
Very close. Very close.
Okay. Okay. So that's another way of presenting to the world, like a facade that you can see the world through and comment about as well, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Okay, so this is the first. This one, I think we're on number 4 now, aren't we? So number 4, this one has actually got a picture that I recognise. Is this the girl with the pearl earring?
Yeah,
is that is? Yeah, and it's really interesting image, isn't it? Because it's. Did you stumble across it? Was it almost like unexpected?
Yes, yeah. This is Banks's image of the girl with the pearl eardrum.
Eardrum.
So, yeah. So it's a lot. That's the thing with this. A lot of because it's a tourist image really, but I wanted to take it from a different angle. So you've got this composition that everyone always takes a picture of just that.
And that was my observation: is the fact that you've tried to as much not capture the image, pass it around so everyone can see. It's more about the actual setting.
Yes, it's more about the environment. Yeah.
Why I wonder why he chose that location. Is that something that you've ever thought about?
No, I think it's always just been about because actually when I was taking that, there was another person who was taking pictures at the same time, and he was using his phone just like I was using my phone to take pictures. But it was more about he was taking pictures of a close up of the artwork, where I've always been about taking it from a different angle, and people don't look down. They're always looking, or a lot of the time now, actually just looking at the phone, being in this new zombie race that is coming out. So people don't actually spend time to look around them, and I think looking down and seeing what's on the floor and then putting a composition together is that's something that. So it wasn't just a everyday tourist image.
No, I don't see myself as any kind of photographer, or don't even really think about it, what I do. And so sometimes I take photographs of people that are taking photographs because I'm almost fascinated as to why they're doing it.
Yes.
So, particularly when you teach and we talk about social media practice and, selfies and, where we are. And I think we were talking to some of the students today about there was an influencer yesterday that got called out because she was pretending she was in Bali, and in fact she was in IKEA. Ability or need for people to sort of try and be somewhere else as opposed to where they are is really interesting. And so taking a photograph of that, it's more a case, is it because you like Banks's interpretation? Is it because you've taken the picture because you're proving that you've seen a Banksy? Is it you've taken it because you like where it is, or just take on it? And then it's observing other people, isn't it, about why they're doing it? Why was that guy next to you? Why was he taking that close? Well, it was almost to prove that he'd been there.
Yes.
Whereas you'd stumbled across it and was more fascinated as to what a strange location. Because it almost looks like a dirty old yard at the back of someone's house. So let's move on to the next one. This is my favourite photograph.
Yes.
Yeah. I do love it. It's a guy smoking a fag on a phone in the doorway of a bookmaker's everywhere in the world. It literally is the tourist version of we've got a bookmaker's just like everybody else. What drew you to that? Because again, the angle that you've taken that as, it's almost like you're slightly higher than him.
Yes.
Were you looking down on that?
Yeah, looking
on
down.
That shot.
This is with the telephoto lens.
Okay. So you're a bit further away with this one.
Yeah, it's further away, and it was higher up, and it was.
Picture gives it away. Gibraltar big bookmakers, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So were you on holiday?
Yeah.
In Gibraltar? Okay.
But it was how, like you see, booking shops here, and it's all about all the marketing, all the flashing lights, or you see the adverts for it, and it's all about that selling that lifestyle. Whereas opposed to this, it's very low key.
It was quite run down.
It's run down, yeah, and it's not really what you'd expect of the capitalist view of bookmakers or selling that lifestyle. It's just what it is, and it is what it is, and it's his story as well that comes across. Yeah,
pass it on. What do you think his story is?
Yeah, I always wonder what he was talking on the phone about, and who was he talking to?
Yeah. ringing the missus. I'll be home a little bit late for my tea. I'm on a roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do they say? Stop when it's not longer fun. And also stop betting when it's no longer fun. Okay. I mean, what do you prefer? Do you prefer that sort of long range, seeing it, then thinking about it, or do you prefer like the first image that we saw where you kind of stumble across the guy because you were quite close to him as well?
Yeah, definitely prefer being closer. Yeah.
Do you feel as if like you're then immersed in it, what's going on, as opposed to an observer being further away?
Yeah.
Why? Why do you like being closer to the story?
I think if you're closer, you really do connect with the subject, and it becomes more about, as a photographer, connecting with what it's about, what the photograph's about. And I think if you have that disconnect, if you're further away, and yes, you can use lenses like that to create a very similar look to being closer, but it's really about the connection's not the same. It's not there, so you don't really feel part of that moment as such.
So just picking up on that last photograph there, I want to ask you about, as someone who does both disciplines, documentary photography and documentary filmmaking, does each one inform the other? Does it make you better?
Yeah, I think because photography is an outlet that I channel a lot of energy into outside of what I do every day. Like because I'm always consumed a lot of thought into a lot of the narrative films that I make and also the documentaries that I make, and photography is a way to connect with the similar topic, but it's channeling your energy elsewhere. And photography, I started out with photography, so it's become a thing where less and less do I do it, but when I do now it's channeled into more of this street photography as opposed to some other work that I used to do. And I think it's always trying to be creative, always doing something, always being active within that. So you're always in that mind space, and they both can relate to each other in many ways. So with film, with cinematography, with photography as well, they've got that overlap there, that they naturally do connect. And if you're always thinking on that wavelength, then you connected closer to the work that you do every day.
You're always driven by that narrative about why things happen and why people do things and what the story is.
Yeah, story is such a really important thing, and in cinema, that for me there isn't enough well-told stories, stories that really make you either think or connect with the characters, and that a really thought-provoking screenplay is hard to come by. And when you do find a film that you connect with and want to watch it over and over again, somehow you connect with the characters or connect with something about the film, and that's the same with photography and all visual mediums. Really, it's I think story is such an important thing it's overlooked in a lot of things.
I suppose also my interest in documentary means that a lot of those photographs that you've taken there, I can see the social documentary element in all of them as well.
Yeah.
Addiction, that kind of stuff. Whether it's sort of the environment, run down, that kind of thing. Whereas this one is probably the first photograph, or certainly out of the ones that we've been looking at now, where you've taken a picture of someone that looks like sitting in the stairwell of a car park.
Yes.
Is it Is that in Leicester?
This is in Leamington, actually.
In Leamington, okay. So it kind of reminds me of a scene that you would see in like the NCP car park,
yes.
Newark Street, many times from the street. Okay, why did you take that photograph?
Was watching her for a little while, and I liked how the brick walls were, and I took two different variations. One where the walls were, I was further back, and you could see more of this left side of the wall. But then I decided that this one is the one that I prefer because you can see more of her, and she becomes the main focus. And I decided to call it "Can't Get Any Lower," so it's on the ground level, and it's a social commentary, and a lot of the images that I've got now are reflections of society, and especially being in Leamington as well. Like you've got this. It's a great place, and
I'm sure it's got a tourist board.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Back to your Brighton comment.
Yeah, it's
earlier.
definitely got a tourist board, and it is a great place, and obviously very very prosperous. But there's also a story there as well. There's what is not told, and these people that are living a different lifestyle, in that place. So, you know, they've got people that are doing it well and people that are prosperous, but you've also got those that are at the lowest of society.
So pass the photograph. What is it you think people see when they look at a photograph like that? Are you after a particular reaction? Are you looking for someone to be interested? Or
as a photographer, really, with images like this, I hope to really connect. I hope people that connect emotionally to it and find. I don't mind if people don't like the work or if people do like it. It's subjective and people can have their own opinion. And I think that if people are fans of the work and they like it, then if they can connect emotionally on that level, then I think that's the job of the photographer, really.
Is to kind of present those images to people in order to make them think. So rather than steering someone down the narrative, what you're just trying to say is there a narrative here? What does it say to you?
Yes, and especially today you've got that flash culture where everything's GIFs or everything's split second, and people don't really listen or don't really have the time to look outside of their lives. They naturally just come in here. I made a comment about how everyone in the High Cross was lost in thought, and I think everyone's always so busy and they don't have time to really reflect upon themselves, and that's quite an important factor of a lot of the photos.
Well, I think also because of speed, like, you know, fast journalism, Twitter, you know, information, facts, we don't really take the time to long read anymore, long form, you know, like sort of, you know, slow journalism, like, you know, and also I think that comes to what we see and the judgments that we make. I remember the most fascinating exercise I nearly did once with a group of students is we went down to the clock tower, and I said, right, what I want you to do is just observe for 5 minutes, you know, in silence, and then tell me what you see. And so the people, you know, spot the obvious, don't they? So there's some guy playing some music. There's the guy talking about Jesus. There's the person sort of tinging their bells because there's Hare Krishna, and then there's people over there reading the Quran, and then there'll be someone who'll be dancing. You know what I mean? There's always this kind of hubbub of life going on in the centre around town, around the clock tower. And then I said, I want you to find me now a vulnerable adult. You know, turn back round now and find me someone that's vulnerable. And no one had spotted anybody that was vulnerable the first time around. But when they all turned around, because they were looking for a vulnerable person, and I kind of put this down to someone that you know just bought a car that's white, and it's this note, and then every time you go down the street, go, is that them? You know, because then you observe that car for the first time because you were aware of it. And then I said, okay, I want you to find me someone now who's up to no good. You know what I mean? And then suddenly people were like, I'd never realised, you know, the amount of vulnerable people there were, the amount of people up to no good, you know, and various other exercises I did, we won't go into now, but looking at people that suddenly they were much more observant because they'd never taken the time, because most of the time it's a transient space, isn't it? Whereas that photograph you've taken there really is about an observation, and you were probably only standing still because Mum and Dad were paying for the car parking. That's right. That's which is the reason you were watching, because you were probably queuing at the car
that's
park.
Right. Yeah.
The ticket machine, and suddenly it makes you take that photograph to get other people to think. Do you think if more people slowed down and observed more?
Yeah, I think people move too quick.
More.
I think people are always thinking of the next thing they've got to do, and they don't give themselves time to really reflect on things enough. And I think that is sort of the role of the photographer in a lot of these things. It's presenting those things, and it's every day. You can walk around these places and see them, but you might not necessarily look at it in that way because you're lost in thought or thinking about the next thing or where you're going to next, as opposed to what really is in that moment at that time.
Now, in all the years I've known you, you're always very serious. I mean, not to the point where you can't ever laugh, because obviously you just laugh, but you're very kind of practical, very kind of driven. You're always doing something. We were laughing the other last night when you were setting up the exhibition, weren't we? About, you know, I'll get a WhatsApp message from you at 9:30 at night, and you'll just ask me a dead direct question. It won't be, "Hi John, how are you? Am I disturbing you?" It'll be like a question, and I'll give you an answer straight away, because I know then you could move on, because that's in your thought process. And this is the first photograph that's got any kind of humour in it, and obviously it just says "haircut, sir." But what was it that made you take this photograph? You know, I was just fascinated, because when it popped up in the 9 that you sent me, and I was like, this is almost like Cameron throwing in a curveball comedic
Yeah.
photograph that he's taken.
I didn't take this long ago, actually. It was in October, so for me...
Well, you're getting old now, you see. You're loosening up now, you're getting old, that's what it is. You've got to...
for me...
Pass it on, and then you can see. Yeah.
For me, when I saw it, it gave that emotion.
Yeah.
That's I can't really describe it, and I don't really know what it is about it, but you feel the image, and there is that. I think I prefer the window at the top than the window at the bottom, and I think that it's got...
Do you know what it was? It tickled me.
Yeah.
It almost reminded me of like 1970s British TV humour.
Yeah.
Very kind of carry on, like, you know what I mean? You know, some mothers do have them, you know, ain't half hot mum. It was just slightly risque, naughty, and just like, kind of made me laugh.
Yeah,
It's it's probably the most seaside postcard-ish image that you've taken.
Yeah.
Is that what you saw? Was it that kind of that it kind of made you snigger a little bit, or was it that kind of play on words, or was it the fact that it was the images that drew it to you, like the top windows?
Yeah, I think the images. Yeah. It's about definitely.
If you were to put the ones that we've seen so far in an order, what's your favourite photograph out of those?
Listening Ear is one of my favourite ones that I've taken in the last few years.
Which one was that?
I think that might have been the first one we showed.
Yeah, okay, the guy sitting there.
Yeah.
For me, it's the bookmaker image. Yeah.
This one is one of my favourite images. Yeah. And I take a lot of pictures of people and people's emotions, but this one is about environment and and I think this is one of my favourite images. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we've got 2 images to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Time's going quick, isn't it? This one, I do like this one. Where was this taken?
Yeah, that's in Bournemouth.
Okay. Do we know the person?
No.
Okay, so it's a stranger.
It's called The Lonesome Child. I took a picture of a similar one in Cornwall many years ago, and it was a landscape image of a boy sitting down that reminded me of the child from the Millions film, and then the characters on beaches that are alone have always been a thought-provoking thing for me. And
what are they thinking about?
It's definitely a thinking space, and people go to either a park or a beach to be pensive and to think about things, and it's always that what are they thinking about? Why are they there? What are they spending that time for? And that image for me captures that emotion.
Landscapes, have they ever played a role in your photographic portfolio? Do you avoid them specifically, or is it the fact because you're drawn to people, it's people in landscapes, and that's maybe the first time that you've done that?
Yeah, I've taken a few landscape images, but it's not a style of photography that I'm really drawn to, and for me it's too commercial. I mean, everyone likes pretty pictures, and pretty pictures sell, and pretty pictures are great, but for me it's about people and always stories, what people have to tell. Yeah. And
when you put your photographs up on quite a few sort of image sites now that you've tested over the years, I've known you must be 3 or 4 or 5 maybe.
Yeah, I've tried Flickr and 500. Yeah. Recently it's 500 pixels. Yeah.
What's the reason that you end using one and look for another one? Is it a purely personal thing about maybe monetising in it, or is it the fact that the way you've been treated, or the comments you're getting? What drives you in order to keep your portfolio on the move? It's
difficult. Really, I did put images on WordPress before, and that was a page that I used to edit and put pictures on. But then Flickr was a thing, and I used that for a while. But then I came off Flickr and then actually went back onto Flickr. So there's been a few things that over the years I've sort of gone off and come back and stuff like that. But I think 500 pixels is what made me change that. Is the free version? I prefer than the paid subscription because you've got 7 images per week, and obviously I'll never upload that anyway. But that whole only uploading the best and that philosophy
makes you think about
and because a lot of people uploading all the time of images that aren't always great. So you really sort of slow down and think, well, which is the best pictures that in my portfolio that I would like to show, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why. But also the fact that I used to upload pictures on Instagram and sites like that, but then I had my opinion changed with Facebook, and I came off Facebook and came off Instagram because they were also owned by Facebook, and the only Facebook product is WhatsApp that I use, but they doesn't have adverts or anything like that on there, so it was more of a guess. I guess it's kind of like a political thing why I stopped using certain things. Yeah.
Do you feel very political in what you do when you're taking your photographs and stuff? Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
Do you look through that lens on life and people?
Yeah, and I think that's it's also I'm quite political, but in a way anti-political, because I haven't voted, and I don't intend to vote for until whatever I feel like voting, but I've got that more view about politics being I think you can see the world the way it is, but politics isn't really for us. I mean, as general people, I think politics is here, and everyone else is here, so it's that's why I choose not to really be involved actively in politics, but more about observation. And
so we're sold on the fact that politics is for us, but it's not really.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game for people that want to watch over us as opposed to being part of society, really.
Okay, so we're going to come on to the last photograph now, which is the only colour image that you sent me.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't surprised about, that I got sent mainly black and white, because you knew we were having this conversation. But then when I actually did look at what the colour image is, obviously it's not about people at all. It's got a bit of street art in it and stuff. So I'm more fascinated as to why you chose that particular image.
Yeah, lighting, I think.
Okay.
I always take the shots in colour first, and change a lot to black and white, and I always prefer black and white, but I always have the option of colour. And this one is one of the rare occasions that I've actually chosen the colour one over the black and white one, and I think really because of this light you get that ambient feel to it, and the main focus is on this mask here, and it's just all about obscure things that are on the streets.
So send it round. Where did you take that?
This is also in Bristol as well.
Okay.
I think that was probably taken at the same time as some of the other ones that actually are shown here.
And was it like an art space or?
No, it's just the great thing about Bristol is art is everywhere, and it's pretty much taken over the city. So you could just be walking anywhere and you could see so many different things. It's so creative, and that's just the odd mask that you see all the time walking down the street.
What project are you working on next? Because you said that kind of links with that image.
Working on 2 narrative films at the minute. I've recently finished I'm
not interested in them. We'll talk about documentaries. No, okay, I'm joking.
I've recently finished. I've recently finished a experimental documentary where I did one I think 2 years ago, Slave in a Suit, which I thought I'd do that that was inspired by Cornus Catsi and the whole Catsi trilogy. And I thought I'd just do that as a one-off, and then I made it A Spectrum, which is a different documentary. But then I went back to the idea of saying maybe I should do a series of like the trilogy. So this was my second one, but it's shorts. So it's 7 minutes. It's called Observatorium, and it's about the observation. And a lot of it's through looking through glass or looking through different objects. There's a kaleidoscope in there, and things that we look through, or things that to perceive different things, and the perception of ourselves or others. And it's all about
lenses and prisms.
Yeah, it's all about perception really, and looking through. It's about. It's a ship. That's a ship as well. The narrative of it is just one. I don't really know who it is, but it's just one single person's point of view, and then he puts on the binoculars, and there's only one shot in colour, and that is got a shot of a wall, and there's a CGI green screen fly that's in there, which is like a pun on the Fly on the Wall documentary, which I was thinking originally to do it as like just a complete piece of just fly on the wall, just a fly on the wall, a CGI fly on the wall for 15 minutes, but then, you know, I came out and used some archive footage that I'd already shot years ago, and then merged that into the edit of some new things that I filmed. So that's something I've recently done, and working on 2 narrative short films, one in post-production, very close to its picture, like a coming-of-age film, and other one, another film that's coming soon.
That you can't tell us about?
Yeah, I can tell you.
Well, tell us about it then.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing is it's my first adaptation, so I've always written my own shorts and directed my own shorts, but the interesting thing is this one is my first adaptation, so it's an interesting view to look at as a filmmaker, to move on to something different. I haven't really got much to say about it because it's in early stages of development at the moment, and apart from, you know, the difficulties of some things, you know, actors join and actors drop out, but that's just the nature of it.
And
yeah,
all that kind of stuff. You're at that point now,
yeah,
aren't you, where you're really
yeah.
starting to professionalise what you do, and start seeking those kind of opportunities yourself now to be able to do that. Do you find that you're working on multiple projects all the time? Have you always done that? So from when I first knew you, when you were sort of, you know, 9 or 10, were you already like that? Have you changed apart from years?
A bit, yeah. I think I've always been a little bit like that, but before it was all about sort of working on one thing and working on making it the best I could at that time. But recently, it's probably just a thing this year, really, or towards the end of last year, and then the start of this year, I've sort of changed to look at, instead of waiting for a project to be complete, because now with directing, it's a lot of energy at the beginning of getting a project started, and then when you're shooting it, there's so much energy and being connected with emotions and everything like that. But then you take a step back, and then when you're in post-production, you've still got quite a lot of work to do, but it's more about getting it, the image to be how you want it to be, or the sound to be how you want it to be, as opposed to, you know, I really crave for that, to be busy, be really busy and being connected with that emotion again. So I think really it's a new thing, looking for new projects, working on many projects at once. Yeah.
Have you found anyone that you've worked with so far in what you've done that is able to keep up with what you do?
Anyone that I've worked with? No. I think it's difficult. I mean, I've worked with people, and, you know, people come. That's the thing about this. People do come and go, and you meet new people. And I think in a way that life is supposed to be like that. I think people are supposed to come in and out of your life like that, and obviously you get some relationships that are lifelong relationships. But I think the majority of it is, especially in professional relationships. I mean, you have working relationships with people and they come and go, but I think, yeah, it's difficult to find people that are, you know, I'm very much always focused on one thing, and if I've got something on my mind, it's never going to go away until I've completed that task. So, well, that one task is completed now, so as opposed to just sitting down and think, well, that's done now, I'm moving on to the next thing.
And that's why you WhatsApp message me at 9:30 at night, isn't it? Because you're full blown in the middle of that process.
Yeah.
Okay, so final question. What is your ideal day? What is Cameron Savage's ideal day? We just had a bit of a look inside your mind and how you work.
Yeah, it's a difficult one.
Does it have to have certain elements to it? Does it have to have an outdoor element, as in leaving the house? Does it have to have film and photography? Does it have to have you watching something, taking downtime?
Yeah, it's a difficult...
Good question, isn't it?
It's a difficult question to answer because, you know...
I'll take a sip of water while you're thinking.
Because it's always... I mean, one day you might think, oh, you enjoyed yourself doing a certain thing, but then sometimes not. But it's... it's hard to say, but when I'm at my most productive or the happiest is always when I'm the most busy. So, I mean, if I'm full swing in a project, you know, they're probably some of the best days that I'd have.
So it's the immersion in
yeah,
something.
If I'm fully immersed in something, then a lot of those are thoughts or like the anxiety or other things that I have and have to deal with on daily. If I'm more immersed in something, then a lot of those thoughts go away, and that is the main focus. And that a lot of the time, then that things can become obsession because the work that I do becomes an obsession, and I'm always immersed in that. But I think when I'm shooting my last film that's now in post, when I was on the sets, when I was working with the actors and being really closely connected with that whole project, that was probably some of the best days that I've had in quite a long time.
Do you lose track of time when you're immersed in something? Does time just disappear?
Yeah, I mean, everything can fall down around you as long as you're working on that one specific thing, and it's really easy to lose track of time, and especially if you're thinking very creatively. I think creative people don't really have much of a their time-keeping skills aren't the best, and and that's just the way it is.
Absolutely. Now, we've got an event tomorrow, and we're open on Saturday, 10 till 4, for the Cameron Savage showcase. What can someone expect when they come down? What's available for them to look at?
So it's a showcase of both photography and film, so I'm screening 3 films that I've worked on. 2 of the trilogy that I'm now actually working towards over time is my own interpretation of the Catsy trilogy, but they're both very, very different from each other, but they're both experimental films, and also A Spectrum as well. So A Spectrum,
which is doing the rounds at the moment.
Yes,
festivals, and it's also been on Together TV.
Yeah, it's been on Together TV in December, and they'll show it again within 3 years. So.
At any point?
They've got a 3-year window, and I don't know when it's going to be played again. But
so that's the end of your 3 years, because you just got to sit there and wait for it to come on again over the next 3 years. So that used to be Community TV.
Yes.
That is now Together TV. What did that feel like to actually know that had played?
Yeah.
Beyond you sharing a DVD with someone or someone watching it on YouTube.
Yeah, it was a good. Was
it a benchmark for you? Do you think? Do you see it as a benchmark?
Yeah. It was a good experience to see it on the channel, and showed a few people, and
about the people that were in it.
Yeah, there was happy at first, but when I did message them, because I had to get release forms to because at that point I hadn't actually done the release forms for the film, because it was originally just going to be an internal project and just used for myself, really. But then I said, well, I might as well use it and share it out. More people that get to see it, the better. So then I was at this sending them messages out saying, come and sign the release forms. And then there was one particular person who was in the film. He said, when was this arranged? And I said, well, I've always had an idea of distribution. You had to look into the channel. And I was like, well, it's a channel aimed at women age 40 or whatever he said. So it was quite interesting to see his view of it. But then when we was designing the form, so I hope that you didn't think that I was being negative or anything like that about it. I actually really want it to be on TV, and I really want to sign the forms, but because I was surprised to see it.
Everybody in it that you interview has some form of autism or Asperger's and stuff like that. So it's really interesting, isn't it, that actually you wanted to find out the details and went right down into who the channel was aimed at and what the demographic was. So
I think that really
you'd almost be surprised if he didn't do that kind of background checking and stuff like that. I mean, do you think that if someone watches that film and listens to those interviews, they get a really good understanding of autism and Asperger's? I
hope they do, and I've had a few people comment on YouTube and say that they didn't have much of an understanding of it before, but now from watching it, it's enlightened their understanding of it. And I've had, when I screened it at the Phoenix Cinema, someone came up to me and said how much it was they connected with it, and how it was just a story and it wasn't trying to be anything too special. It was just stories, and I think that was the main part of that film. The main focus was on all the 4 young people, and it was their stories. And I said to them, there's a lot of films out there that they tell you a certain way how to feel. It's very preferred reading. It's very, well, this is this is the facts. We're presenting you all this information. This is what autism is. But for me, there's too much of that, and I wanted this film to be, well, we were aware that autism is a spectrum. Everyone can have their own experiences. So
it's almost like this is what these people are.
Yeah.
As opposed to what they have, isn't it? Sort of,
Yeah. So I said to everyone involved, said, this is your film. It was my idea to do it, but it's all. It's shaped by you, so everything that you say is what we do. So I said there's got parts in it where they animate their childhood experiences. There was so I can say anything that I want within reason. You can say whatever you want, yeah. So it's all about them, and that was the main factor of it, really.
So Cameron, thank you very much for agreeing to come in,
having me here,
being a guest. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It wasn't that bad, was it? Really?
Yeah.
Yes, John, it was that bad. It's great. So thanks very much for watching. This is our third Reportage Club. Cameron, the youngest person I've ever interviewed over the 25, 26 that I've done, but definitely the oldest. I'm sure people will agree with that. Been here before. You know what I mean? All of your links to social media and stuff like that are going to be in the bio section on our YouTube below. Also, you've got a bit of a you want people to get involved, bit of a fundraiser, that kind of stuff. You're looking to do a Kickstarter campaign and all that kind of stuff for one of your films at the moment. So we'll make sure we put the link in that if people want to support what you do. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks.